One of the most significant traps people fall into when dealing with narcissists is the tendency to minimize the impact of their behavior. Narcissists are often charming, persuasive, and skilled at manipulating others into dismissing or overlooking their toxic actions. They present a carefully crafted facade of confidence, success, or even vulnerability, which can create the illusion that they are harmless or misunderstood. As a result, those who interact with narcissists may downplay or rationalize their behavior, convincing themselves that the narcissist's actions are not as damaging as they seem. This can lead to prolonged exposure to emotional abuse, manipulation, and exploitation, often without even realizing it. The tendency to minimize the impact of a narcissist's behavior not only prevents individuals from protecting themselves, but it also allows the narcissist to continue their harmful actions unchecked. The cycle of minimizing narcissistic behavior often starts when the narcissist first enters your life. They may initially be very charming, appearing to be attentive, caring, and even generous. This can lead to the belief that they are truly a good person, despite occasional moments of self-centeredness or boundary pushing. These moments are often subtle and dismissed as quirks or miscommunications. Over time, however, the narcissist's behavior becomes more overt, and their demands for attention, admiration, or control intensify. At this point, many individuals find themselves caught in the trap of excusing their actions, telling themselves that they are just having a bad day, that they didn't mean to hurt anyone, or that they will change. The hope that the narcissist's behavior is temporary or that they can be fixed can be incredibly persuasive, making it harder to recognize the extent of the emotional damage being done. This minimization often comes from a desire to maintain peace or avoid conflict. Many people, particularly those with a high tolerance for discomfort, are reluctant to confront or challenge the narcissist's behavior. The narcissist, being adept at emotional manipulation, may use guilt or shame to pressure others into minimizing their actions. They might portray themselves as victims, making their behavior seem justified. Or they might deflect blame onto others, claiming that their actions were provoked. This creates a situation where those around the narcissist feel responsible for managing their emotions or actions, often at the expense of their own well-being. This dynamic can lead to a warped sense of guilt or confusion, where the individual feels that they are the one at fault for not accommodating the narcissist's demands. The problem with minimizing narcissistic behavior is that it leads to a gradual erosion of boundaries. When a narcissist's actions are constantly excused or downplayed, it becomes harder to establish and maintain healthy personal boundaries. Over time, you may find yourself giving more and more of your time, energy, and attention to the narcissist while neglecting your own needs. You might begin to accept behavior that you would have once found unacceptable simply because you have become desensitized to it or convinced that it is not as bad as it seems. This gradual erosion of boundaries can lead to a state of emotional exhaustion where you feel drained and powerless but are unable to break free from the narcissist's influence. Another aspect of minimizing narcissistic behavior is the tendency to normalize their actions. As the narcissist's behavior becomes more entrenched, it may begin to feel like a normal part of the relationship. This normalization can make it difficult to recognize the true extent of the harm being caused, as the narcissist's actions are often framed as a normal response to stress or a product of their personality. Over time, you may begin to convince yourself that their behavior is just a part of who they are, and that it's something you must learn to live with or tolerate. This mindset can cause a person to lower their standards for how they expect to be treated, accepting less respect, less kindness, and less consideration than they deserve. The longer you minimize the impact of the narcissist's behavior, the more deeply you become entrenched in their web of manipulation. The narcissist thrives on control, and minimizing their behavior plays directly into their hands. They will use your tendency to excuse their actions as a way to further entrench themselves in your life, making it more difficult to set clear boundaries or disengage from their toxic influence. The narcissist may even use your compassion and desire to help as a weapon, guilt-tripping you into thinking that you are the one who should change or that you are not doing enough to help them improve. This constant cycle of self-doubt, emotional manipulation, and rationalization creates a situation where the narcissist's power over you grows while your sense of agency and autonomy diminishes. The key to breaking free from the trap of minimizing narcissistic behavior is developing a clear sense of reality and self-worth. You must start to recognize that the narcissist's behavior is not an isolated incident or something that can be excused. It is part of a larger pattern of emotional manipulation and exploitation. The first step is acknowledging the truth. The narcissist's behavior is harmful and it is not acceptable. This requires an honest and objective assessment of the situation, which can be difficult, especially if you have been conditioned to minimize their actions over time. It is important to trust your own perception of events and not allow the narcissist to rewrite your reality or make you feel responsible for their behavior. Once you've recognized the narcissist's actions for what they are, the next step is to assert boundaries and stop excusing harmful behavior. This may involve limiting or cutting off contact with the narcissist if necessary, especially if their behavior is consistently destructive to your emotional and mental health. Setting boundaries can be incredibly difficult, particularly if the narcissist is someone close to you, but it is essential for reclaiming your sense of self and protecting your well-being. You must prioritize your own needs and make it clear that certain behaviors will no longer be tolerated. This may result in conflict, but it is a necessary part of the process of reclaiming your autonomy and self-respect. Ultimately, minimizing the impact of a narcissist's behavior is a trap that keeps you stuck in a toxic cycle of emotional manipulation. By acknowledging the harm being done, setting boundaries, and refusing to excuse their actions, you can begin to break free from their influence and restore your sense of self-worth and emotional well-being. As one of the most insidious ways narcissists control and manipulate others is through their ability to diminish or even completely disregard the personal values, beliefs, and identities of those around them. Narcissists are so self-absorbed that they view the world primarily in terms of how it benefits or inconveniences them. As a result, they often attempt to impose their own perceptions, preferences, and demands onto others, expecting complete alignment with their worldview. In doing so, they can pressure or persuade others to compromise their personal values and to behave in ways that are in line with the narcissist's needs rather than their own. Over time, this persistent undermining of one's sense of identity can lead to the erosion of self-respect, confusion, and a loss of personal direction. At the core of this manipulation is the narcissist's constant attempt to reshape others into their idealized image. Narcissists are driven by the need to feel superior and often have a distorted, inflated sense of self. They may view others as mere extensions of themselves, tools to serve their own desires rather than as individuals with their own unique identities. They see themselves as the central figure in the universe, and as a result, expect others to mirror their beliefs, opinions, and desires. This is particularly problematic when it comes to core personal values, as the narcissist will often try to devalue or belittle the things that are most important to you, forcing you to second-guess what you hold dear. They may downplay your principles, dismiss them as unimportant, or mock them as naive or weak. This constant assault on your values can make you doubt your own judgment, ultimately leading you to question whether your beliefs are valid or worth upholding. This type of manipulation often extends to social dynamics as well. Narcissists may try to push you into specific roles in their life, roles that serve their own self-interest while completely disregarding your personal needs and desires. For instance, they might demand that you play the role of the supportive, self-sacrificing friend or partner, forcing you to put their needs above your own. They may act as though your identity is a secondary concern, subjugating your needs in favor of their own, leaving you emotionally exhausted and frustrated. Over time, this dynamic can distort your sense of self as you begin to adapt your behavior to fit the narcissist's expectations rather than standing firm in your own identity. This manipulation is also emotionally corrosive. The narcissist will often employ tactics such as guilt tripping, shaming, or ridicule to make you feel inadequate about your own values or beliefs. They might make you feel that you are being unreasonable or selfish for wanting to maintain your own standards, causing you to second-guess your priorities and push aside the things that truly matter to you. If you continue to let the narcissist dictate the terms of your relationship, you may lose touch with your own preferences, desires, and principles, slowly becoming more and more like the person they want you to be rather than the person you are. At its most extreme, this manipulation can lead to identity loss. When a narcissist demands that you adhere to their standards and expectations, you begin to lose sight of who you truly are. You may start to believe that your worth is tied to their approval, leading you to abandon parts of yourself in exchange for their affection or validation. This erosion of your sense of self can leave you feeling lost, disconnected, and unsure of your place in the world. You might find yourself agreeing to things you don't truly want or compromising on beliefs that you once held dear, all in an attempt to maintain a relationship with the narcissist. In the process, you become someone you no longer recognize, detached from the person you once were, and at odds with your own values. One of the most dangerous aspects of this type of manipulation is that it reinforces the narcissist's power while diminishing your ability to act in your own best interests. By pushing you to doubt your values and continually shaping your actions to fit their needs, they create a toxic dynamic in which you are forced to prioritize their desires above your own. This dynamic feeds into their sense of superiority as they begin to see you as a tool to serve their needs rather than as an equal. It becomes a cycle. The more they manipulate you into abandoning your values, the stronger their control over you becomes. The more they erode your identity, the more they make you dependent on them for validation, further solidifying their dominance in the relationship. The key to breaking free from this destructive pattern is learning to reconnect with your core values and stand firm in your sense of self. This begins with self-awareness, recognizing when the narcissist is attempting to push you into adopting their values and beliefs. You must become mindful of the ways in which they are subtly undermining your identity. It might be uncomfortable at first to stand up for yourself, especially if you've become accustomed to accommodating their demands, but it's essential to draw a line and say no when your personal values are being challenged. Standing firm in your principles, even in the face of the narcissist's attempts to belittle or manipulate you, is a powerful way to reclaim your sense of self. This also means developing emotional resilience. When you prioritize your own values, you will inevitably face resistance from the narcissist. They may react with anger, manipulation, or guilt, trying to convince you that your boundaries are unreasonable or self-centered. It's essential to remain strong in the face of this pressure. Trust in your own judgment and remind yourself that maintaining your values is not only vital for your own well-being, but it's also a necessary step in protecting your emotional health. It's about reclaiming control over your life and refusing to allow anyone, least of all a narcissist, to dictate who you should be or what you should believe. Ultimately, reclaiming your identity requires you to stop seeking validation from the narcissist. When you no longer look to them for approval, you free yourself from their emotional grip. This can be an incredibly liberating process, allowing you to reconnect with who you are and what truly matters to you. By focusing on your own beliefs, desires, and values, you begin to take back control of your life. One of the most challenging aspects of dealing with a narcissist is the way they constantly attempt to undermine your sense of self-worth by offering sharp criticism. The narcissist's criticisms are often designed not to be constructive, but to target your vulnerabilities, undermine your confidence, and erode your sense of identity. These criticisms can take many forms: outright insults, subtle digs, or backhanded compliments, but the goal is always the same: to make you doubt your own worth and value. Narcissists rely on making others feel inferior so that they can maintain their sense of superiority. They feed off the power they feel when they see you questioning yourself, creating an emotional imbalance where you feel compelled to seek their approval, often at the expense of your own mental and emotional well-being. Criticism from a narcissist is rarely about the actual issue at hand. Often it is simply a tool used to create confusion and control. When a narcissist criticizes you, they might point out your perceived flaws in a way that makes you feel as if you are falling short of their expectations, even if those expectations are unreasonable or unrealistic. This tactic serves to establish a power dynamic where they remain in control while you are left scrambling to justify yourself, trying to meet an ever-moving standard of perfection. Narcissists often use this kind of emotional manipulation to keep you off balance, questioning your decisions, your abilities, and even your worth as a person. This creates a toxic feedback loop where you become so focused on their criticisms that you lose sight of your own inherent value and begin to define yourself based on their distorted perceptions. One of the most insidious forms of narcissistic criticism is gaslighting, a tactic where the narcissist makes you question your own reality. For example, they may criticize you for something they themselves did or accuse you of being overly sensitive when you express hurt or frustration over their behavior. Over time, this constant invalidation can leave you feeling like you're constantly walking on eggshells, unsure of how to respond or what to believe. The narcissist's ability to twist situations and make you doubt your own experiences is incredibly damaging because it not only makes you question your judgment, but it also undermines your sense of self-worth. The more the narcissist criticizes you in this way, the more you begin to second-guess your own perceptions and feel inadequate or confused. Narcissists also tend to use public criticism as a way to assert dominance and control over you. They may criticize you in front of others, whether it's family, friends, or colleagues, with the intention of belittling you in front of an audience. This public humiliation can be especially painful because it strips away your sense of privacy and personal dignity, making you feel vulnerable and exposed. The narcissist might pretend that they are only helping you by pointing out your flaws, but the underlying motive is to maintain control by making you feel small and insignificant. They want others to see you as inferior so that their own sense of superiority is reinforced. It's crucial to recognize that narcissistic criticism is rarely, if ever, about you as a person. It's about the narcissist's need for control, admiration, and validation. Narcissists typically lack true empathy, and as such, their criticisms are not meant to help or guide you, but to make you feel lesser in comparison to them. In many cases, their critiques are rooted in their own insecurities. They tear you down because they need to feel elevated, and putting others down is the easiest way to achieve that sense of superiority. When you internalize these criticisms, you give them the power to dictate your emotions and self-worth, letting their insecurities become your own. One of the most dangerous consequences of accepting or internalizing narcissistic criticism is that it causes you to doubt your own sense of self. As the narcissist's critical remarks accumulate, they gradually erode your confidence and self-esteem. You may begin to believe the harsh words they've said about you, viewing yourself as unworthy, incapable, or flawed. This leads to an emotional state where you become more vulnerable to further criticism and manipulation because your self-worth becomes tied to how the narcissist perceives you. The more you try to appease them or prove yourself, the more you reinforce their power over you. This is a key aspect of the narcissistic cycle. The constant undermining of your self-confidence leads you to seek more validation from them, keeping you locked in a toxic dynamic where you can never truly feel good enough. At times, narcissists will also offer praise or compliments that are meant to appear positive, but are actually backhanded or insincere. For example, they may say, "You're the best at this," for someone like you, or "You look great for your age." These remarks are crafted to feel like compliments, but carry an underlying message of condescension or criticism. They reinforce the idea that you are only acceptable to the narcissist if you meet certain standards, which are constantly shifting and often unattainable. The narcissist may use these subtle digs to create a false sense of gratitude, making you feel like they've done you a favor by acknowledging you in some way, even though their real goal is to keep you feeling inferior and dependent on their approval. The key to overcoming the impact of narcissistic criticism is to disconnect your self-worth from the narcissist's opinion. It's essential to recognize that their criticism is a reflection of their own need for control and validation, not a true reflection of who you are or your abilities. To do this, you need to develop a strong sense of self that is based on your own values, beliefs, and experiences, rather than relying on the narcissist's opinion to determine your worth. This means learning to trust your own judgment and believing in your own abilities, even when the narcissist tries to convince you otherwise. One of the most effective ways to combat narcissistic criticism is to set firm boundaries with the narcissist. When they attempt to criticize or belittle you, you can assertively reject their words and refuse to engage in discussions that undermine your self-worth. While this may be difficult, especially if you have been conditioned to seek their approval, it is essential to reclaim your emotional autonomy and stand up for your value. By doing so, you stop allowing their criticism to have any power over you, and you begin to rebuild your sense of self from within, rather than depending on their distorted view of you. This process may take time, but It is a crucial step in breaking free from the narcissist's toxic influence and protecting your emotional well-being.